So we want to talk about getting the corporate startup marriage right. I have the feeling that this is a relationship where there's a high divorce rate and there are even more couples living in pain under one roof. So the question is, how can we make that relationship work? And I think there are quite a few startup entrepreneurs in the room, not so many corporates. So my proposition is that we focus on creating a take-home value. What can startups do differently to interact more efficiently with the German corporate world? So okay. let's try to generate some insights here.
Yeah, let's do that.
Uli, would you like to remind us what exactly you're doing with these startups?
Yes, so I'm Managing Director of Axel Springer Digital Ventures, so Axel Springer Media Group, larger media group, and Axel Springer Digital Ventures. So since 2013 we have been investing in many startups, directly, indirectly, in many ways.
So to sum up, I mean, you invest in early stage startups?
Mostly.
That have to do something with your business activities?
Not necessarily, maybe that's also a point. So large organizations, so why do they invest in startup companies? You have a couple of venture capital companies, so they have the name of a larger organization, but they're completely apart, and they're like a normal VC investor, and there are others being closer, so we feel being closer. But even then, it makes no sense to invest too close to your existing business, because you don't know how it might look like in 5 or 10 years. Yeah, so we are quite open. Yeah.
So why should I, as a startup, why should I come to you? Why is it attractive for me that you will invest in me?
And so that's really the question. So we are talking about marriage. I don't think you always have to marry. So there are many ways of interaction. So there are friendships, and so I don't want to go too deep into this metaphor, but the marriage is the ultimate thing, and you should be very aware of what you are doing. So, and have a good gut feeling with it on both sides. So why should a startup come to us, or why did they? So it can be, in one aspect, that you want to have the reputation of a bigger partner, that you have kind of a reference. It can be that you say, so I want to be in that market and leverage, or be leveraged by the network of the partner. It can be just the money, so there are many aspects. And the first thing is to find that out.
So would you agree that what startups are mostly looking for today is actually not so much the capital? There's plenty of capital available. It's more building up revenues, right? Particularly in the B2B field.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so you're saying that when, as a startup, we get an investment from you, that will help us actually get more revenues within the group.
Yeah.
Well, what does collaboration mean?
It can be the case. So I'll give a couple of examples. So we invested in a startup. So they're bold enough to build a search engine in France. It's called Quant. So that's, I think, a bold thing, starting it. And they're looking for partners supporting them long term, so understanding the market and really wanting to have some competition in that market. And here, I would say it's kind of a joint venture, so even if we only have below 20% of it. And so we understand the market, so we can help them introduce their services here, also into Germany. And so we have the same goal, and we are on the same page. Here it makes sense. Yeah.
So one of the challenges, of course, is the decision-making processes in large corporates. And I mean, every startup you ask, they will complain about the fact that it's so complicated. Yeah. What would you recommend can startups do to get more value out of the relationship?
Yeah, so firstly is to, and on both sides, to be very clear on what you really want. So is that a long-term, so when it comes to this marriage, so which is a shareholding, then you stick together for the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe even longer, more years, and you should be very clear. So is that at the corporate side, is that a short-term initiative, or is it kind of you always also have corporate, so you do kind of a greenwashing, so or in terms of innovation. So do they really want to invest you, and do they really want to support your business model long term? So, and that's sometimes really hard to understand. So who makes a decision? Is a person you're talking to still on board next year? So who makes a decision about further financing rounds and so forth? So it's a lot of trust in it, and so I would do a due diligence also as a startup when you invest, get a corporate investor.
Sure. So we have done the due diligence.
Yeah.
We come up with Axel Springer as, you know,
Yeah.
great winner of the due diligence, and we get an investment. So what is your secret sauce? What do we have to do to leverage your enormous assets effectively?
Then it's being connected to the organization. So and I'm a bit fuzzy about it because there is no mechanism. So maybe you can use an API. So then it's a kind of a formal thing. But in most cases so you need people promoting your service connected with the existing services. And is that a secret sauce? It can be if it's the right people, but I don't believe too much in the general and systematic approach. So it's an individual thing. So in many companies, so even in large corporations, you have a limited number of people being able to work with startups, and I would say for our group we have a couple of those. Yeah.
So are you saying it's effectively about building relationships within the corporate?
Absolutely, and figure out also in the beginning how could a collaboration take place. Otherwise, I had another way to work with the corporate. So I said we have a couple of ways to invest. So we run an accelerator, so the second accelerator right now, which invests very early. And so here I think that's a little bit a partnership on trial, so where you are part of an venture capital company, but you don't have necessarily a corporate as a main investor. Yeah.
So let's maybe learn from failures. Do you have an example of a startup you invested in and that had a hard time developing a business relationship with Axel Springer?
Yeah, so we
And why was that so?
For instance, so there are a couple of examples. So I would say one company, so being in the business of selling fine antiques, so we integrated them into our media. And I think here they were too early in the market. So the market is doing better right now, but at that time it was difficult. I wouldn't say it was a misunderstanding, but it didn't work out. So we had another company being in so it was a automotive community. So and we had a minor shareholding, and it wasn't clear so whether we would be interested to acquire the company, they want to be acquired, or they would be standalone. And it was kind of a shadow on the relationship. I think the company did well, but we sold it. But luckily we have more examples where it worked out.
So do you have an example, a great success story where a startup, and what did they do to make it so successful?
There are a couple. Let's let's start big. And it might not be really a start, but take business insider. So we firstly had a share as a venture capitalist, and then we had the chance to take over majority. And I think it's a great relationship. With another one called Bonial or Kaufda, they very early, so what they do is, so they started with digitizing advertising brochures, so which were printed, and so they addressed the same customers as we did, and so they could immediately use our network, and they did that very early. So that's a good example. So, and I mentioned Quant, so we managed them all together, the business. To grow over the time, and I think we can further do a lot together. Yeah.
So at the beginning you advocated against marriage and for typical Berlin free relationship. But would you say for an Israeli startup that wants to build relationships with the German corporate world, which, as Nimron pointed out, is still very important, would you say corporate venture capital is the right way to approach it?
Absolutely. So in this case, so we're really on the same page. So you understand the markets both, so you have a good relationship with the people, and you have an idea so how to leverage it. So it makes perfectly sense. Yeah.
So guys, Uli is saying corporate venture capital is a good idea for Israeli startups to enter Germany. They are a great company. They have lots of money. So come talk to him after the talk. Thank you.
Thank you.